What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Yugi-Kaiba duel. This is a duel that still features the Soul Control deck. I want to keep showing off this deck because it is the most popular deck in the format, and it is arguably the best deck in the format as well. But more importantly, with this duel and also the duel that I showed off in my last video, I'm trying to show people some of the things to keep in mind in the format and also some general tips and strategies that can be useful to know. So, before we dive into the duels themselves, I'm just going to go over the Soul Control deck really briefly for anyone who hasn't seen the last couple of videos. The general strategy of the deck is to use tribute monsters like Summon Skull in conjunction with things like Change of Heart and Soul Exchange to have a bit more removal in your deck and to also have an incredibly powerful monster that can get over pretty much anything else in the game. In addition to the Summon Skulls, we also have 3 Lodge-In, 3 Neo, 3 Battle-Ox. These are the premier level 4 beaters of the format. We have 3 Man-Eater Bug to function as a form of removal. We have 3 Giant Soldier of Stone to act as a defensive wall, but also to get in for a bit more damage when we need it. For the spells, we have the Power 5, Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, Raigeki, all the powerful limited spells. They're incredibly strong. We have 3 Fissure to act as removal. We have 2 Soul Exchange to go with the Summon Skulls, as I mentioned before. We have 2 Swords Revealing Light to stall our opponent for a bit, enable us to buy a bit more time when we're in a tough spot. We have a D-Spell to deal with our opponent's Swords Revealing Light. And for the traps, we have 3 Trap Hole to act as more removal, 3 Reinforcements to also act as removal in most cases, but also, as I showed off in the last video, to also potentially get in a bit more damage around something like a Waboku. And of course we have 3 Waboku to act as an incredibly strong defense, but also potentially to use offensively in some niche cases. For the side deck, we have 3 Trap Master to go up against decks that are playing Ultimate Offering. We have some Wall of Illusions to go up against other Soul Control decks. We have an Aquamador if we want to play a bit more defensively. We have 2 Judgeman and a Soul Exchange if we want to go a bit further in on the Soul Control strategy. We have 2 Card Destruction for Exodia. We have a D-Spell to play against decks that either set more spells or against stall decks that we want to dismantle the Swords Revealing Light of. We also have 2 Just Desserts to play normally against Ultimate Offering decks because they can get down to relatively low life points. And also we have an Ultimate Offering if we want to play a bit more quickly, get a bit more offensive. So now that I've covered the deck, let's dive right into the duels. Okay, we've got a game against Alan Manzano Official, and it looks like we are going second, which is a bit unfortunate for us. But this is not a bad hand. You know, we have a fair amount of beaters. We have 2 Man-Eater Bugs. So it's not the worst. And they start out with a Pot of Greed. Poggers, if you will. Pot of Greedgers, if you will. And they will set 2 and pass back to us. Feeling okay about this. We'll just bring out a Battle-Ox. It gets Trap Hold. You know, it's a very predictable course of action there, but I think it was worth baiting out the Trap Hole on a Battle-Ox. We've got the Lodge-In for next turn, and we do have a Trap Hole of our own, so we can use that if we want. They're going to just set 2 and pass back to us. And we are going to bring out the Lodge-In and try and attack it. It's likely a Man-Eater Bug, but we'll make that trade. And it was a Man-Eater Bug indeed. And they'll pass back to us. They're going to bring out a Lodge-In of their own, and we're going to let that go through. I think that's because we have the Man-Eater Bugs in hand to remove it on their next turn, but I think we could have potentially just Trap Hold that. I actually think the best thing we could have done was instead of bring out the Lodge-In, bring out the Giant Soldier of Stone in attack mode and attack into the Man-Eater Bug. If it's a Giant Soldier of Stone of their own, we just Fissure it, And if they try and bring out a monster to attack over the stone, we just trap hole it. And this allows us to save the lodge in hand for later. But, I mean, we didn't do that, so it is what it is. We'll set a man-eater bug, and they will attack into it. We will use that to get rid of their lodge-in. They're going to set another monster, pass back to us. And we're just going to set a man-eater bug of our own, pass back to them. It's a bit risky if that is a bug, because they could flip up their bug, pop ours, and they've only used one bug, so it is likely that they might have another. But we're going to take the risk, and they will change of heart it, which is really unfortunate for us. They're just going to flip it up, destroy itself, and then they're going to attack in with the Giant Soldier of Stone. We let that fly because we've got Fisher for the worst case. We've got a defensive wall in Giant Soldier of Stone that they can't really get over with just their Giant Soldier. And also if we draw a beater, then we can just attack over it. So, feeling pretty good about that. We do draw a beater, and we will bring it out. And we will try to attack over that Giant Soldier, and it will succeed. So we're feeling pretty good about that. Pass back to them. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw reinforcements, which is nice. We're just going to attack into that. And it is a bug, unfortunately. And then we're just going to set to pass back to them. I think we could have gone a bit more aggressive there because we do have the trap hole. So we can protect our Giant Soldier for a little bit longer. And we do also have a reinforcements now to back it up as well. But, I mean, I guess we were trying to play around something like a Raigeki if it was a Giant Soldier. So, it is what it is. They're going to use swords, flip up the Giant Soldier of Stone, and nothing we can do here. We could dispel and attack in for damage, which I don't hate. I actually think that would have been the better play because it seems like they don't really have many monsters here. So I think we could have just gone full aggressive. But we don't. We're going to wait it out, which I think is a mistake, but we do it anyways. We pass back to them. They have a beater finally, and we will trap hole this because it's likely that they have like a Fisher or something to deal with our Giant Soldier. And then we'll pass. They'll pass back to us. We'll set one, and now Swords has expired, and they will Soul Exchange, which is unfortunate. We don't have our trap hole anymore, and we don't have a good out to that. I mean, we could Soul Exchange it, or we could Dark Hole it. Oh, I guess we have the Fisher. We have the Fisher set. I just forgot about that. So yeah, this is the best way to do it. Just Fisher there, summon Skull, and attack in. And pass back to them. And they will summon out a Lodge-in, which is very good. And they'll attack into the Battle Ox. And damage step, we will reinforcements. And they also have reinforcements. But we also have reinforcements. So that Lodge-in will die. And we'll get to keep our Battle Ox. And they have another Swords. So I guess this is why we saved the Dispel, because now we can use Dispel here and get rid of their swords. So we will Dispel that swords and attack in for damage. We will set the Woboku, and we could set another card as a bluff. The issue is that both these cards are super powerful. We have Summon Skull in hand to pair with the Soul Exchange, and Dark Hulk is just a board clear. So we don't necessarily want to set a bluff now to have it get dispelled, potentially. It's unlikely that they'd immediately dispel it, but if we lose either of these cards, it would be bad. And we do have a set card that can't be dispelled, so that might make them a bit wary of what they do. So let's pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Neo, and that's fine by us. They're going to attack in, and we could let this die, or we could Woboku. And I do think Wobokuing is the better option, because we don't have another monster in hand to follow it up with. So we might as well Woboku here, deprive them of a monster, and get in for more damage next turn. And that we do. We will attack in for 17. And we'll set the Fisher because the Fisher could get dispelled, but it's easily the least good spell card in our hand. And we do want to pretend like there is something here, just so that they might be a little bit wary. So, pass back to them. They're going to Soul Exchange our monster and bring out a Summoned Skull, which is very good for us, because we've got this Fisher to trade 1-for-1 with it. And we also have a Giant Soldier of Stone to get in some damage. So we'll summon out the Giant Soldier, Fisher away their monster, and attack in. Now, we have a choice in main phase 2 about whether we set our spells or not. Both of these spells are super high impact for us, and we aren't at risk of dying. So the safe option would be just to keep these in hand. They've only got one card left in hand, so it could be a monster to attack into our Giant Soldier, or it could just be a Summoned Skull, or just some other brick. They also can't kill us at this position, because the best they could do is Monster Reborn and Summoned Skull, and summon out a Lodgin. They have used up their Change of Heart, and so they won't be able to get in, they won't be able to take control of Giant Soldier and get 1300 extra damage against us. So if they Fisher away the Giant Soldier, then that's going to be 4,300 damage they could do. They have used up only one reinforcement. So actually, if both of these are reinforcements, which, you know, we know they're not here, but we don't in the moment. If both of those are reinforcements, then they can win if they have like a Reborn in hand, draw a Lodge in, and both of those are reinforcements. Then they will be able to... Actually, that won't be lethal because they won't have a way to clear the Giant Soldier. They just don't have enough cards to do lethal. So we could just save both of these in hand and not take the risk of bluffing. But we decide to bluff, and we set the Soul Exchange to the bluff. And I think this is the biggest mistake, because bluffing is generally safe. People won't generally blind dispel a card that you just set. But if you're going to bluff, you want to use the card that you're less likely to get good use out of in your hand. And Dark Hole is the generally more powerful card. But given that we're low on monsters, and given that we have a Summoned Skull in hand to pair with the Soul Exchange, it is probably better to set the Dark Hole here than the Soul Exchange. We don't really have to set either, but if we are going to commit to a bluff, it's better to Dark Hole than Soul Exchange. But we set the Soul Exchange. We figure it's very unlikely that they just blind dispel this, and if they don't blind dispel this, we are in a very good position. They have to bring out a monster most likely to clear the Giant Soldier, so we're feeling pretty good about it. They will draw and summon out a Battle Ox, which we're fine with, and they will attack in to our Giant Soldier. We're not going to do anything here because we can't. And then they will fire a Dispel because they've narrowed down that it likely isn't a trap hole. It likely isn't reinforcements. We've only used one Woboku, but we might have used a Woboku there just to protect our Giant Soldier. We have not used any Swords Revealing Light either, so this is like a slight risk on their part, but they're like, we'll fire off the Dispel. It's probably a bluff, and they are in fact right. It is the Soul Exchange, which is a super rough loss for us. It actually would have been better if we had set Dark Hole and they had sniped the Dark Hole, because at least we would have been able to bring out the Summoned Skull. But we lose our Soul Exchange, which is super bad for us. We draw Trap Hole, which is also rough. We set the Trap Hole and we just Dark Hole that Battle Ox because we can't afford to let it stay on the field because we don't have anything to really stop like a Monster Reborn here. So we will Dark Hole the Battle Ox. So this Dark Hole will serve as a 1-for-1. And the Soul Exchange would have also served as a 1-for-1 trade, except we would have gotten a monster on field as part of the deal. So I think that, you know, we really messed up. We didn't have to bluff, but we did bluff instead. And that might cost us the game here. So let's see what happens. They will summon out a Neo, and we'll just trap hole that. And they do have a Monster Reborn in hand. So, you know, we did have to clear the Battle Ox, or else we would have taken a lot more damage here. But this feels pretty bad. Pass back to us. And we don't really have anything to do. We'll just set the Neo, pass back to them. And they will attack into the Neo, pass back to us. And we don't have anything. So we will just admit defeat. If we had not set either the Soul Exchange or the Dark Hole, then we could have potentially used the Soul Exchange on the Battle Ox. You know, they would have probably had to reborn their Summoned Skull and attacked into our Summoned Skull using their Woboku. And we would have kept the Dark Hole in hand for whatever monsters they brought out. We had the Trap Hole to deal with their Neo. We had the Dark Hole to deal with their Battle Ox. And we could have summoned our Neo in to attack in for game because they would have used the Woboku. So, you know, it's a minor thing, a minor mistake of setting a bluff here, but it really hurt us. And it hurts especially knowing that we didn't actually have to set that bluff because there was no way that they could have actually assembled lethal that turn. So that's just a caution. Bluffing is generally incredibly powerful because, you know, people are unlikely to use a D-spell on a back row blind. And generally you can maneuver it so that you can set cards that you're most likely to use sooner rather than later, and thus prevent your opponent from being able to pick up that you're bluffing before they actually have a chance to fire a D-spell. But it doesn't always work out like that, so it's always good to keep in mind whether you actually need to bluff in a given situation. And if you don't, and you have powerful spells in hand, maybe keep those spells in hand, and don't let what happened here happen to you. But anyways, we go into the next duel here, and you know, we have a bit of a chat after. It's always nice to just talk to your opponent throughout, and yeah, so we just have a nice little chat, and now we get to go first, which is pretty nice. And so we'll draw for turn, and this is a decent hand here. We'll summon out the Neo and then set 1 and set 2. There's not really much risk to bluffing here because the first turn, and also it's just a Fisher, so it's not the most high-powered spell in the game. So it's not the worst bluff. And we'll pass back to them. They'll set 3, pass back to us. It's very likely that is a Man-Eater bug, so we'll just bring out a Lodgin, which will get Trap Hold. But honestly, not too torn up about that. We'll attack in to their Man-Eater bug. Our Neo will get popped, and we'll pass back to them. They will bring out a Neo of their own, and we're fine with that because we've got the Man-Eater in hand, so it's not the worst. We're going to set the Man-Eater, pass back to them, and they're just going to attack into the Man-Eater. We'll pop their Neo. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. And we didn't really have the best draw. Just the Trap Hole when we already have a Trap Hole on the field. So not the best. They'll pass back to us. We do have a Battle Ox, which is very nice. So we will Swords here, just in case it's a bug, to clear the bug. It's not. It's a, you know, Giant Soldier. But we do have a Fisher to deal with that. So we can just Fisher it away, attack in for some damage, and also our Ox is protected by swords. And we have a Raigeki to clear something if they have a set, potentially. They have a Soul Exchange, and they will summon the Summoned Skull. We could Trap Hole this, but I guess we're planning on using the Dark Hole to clear it. Yeah, I respect that choice because the Summoned Skull can't attack, and we do also have another mass board clear in our hand, so it's not the worst. We'll set 1, pass back to them. We draw a Summoned Skull of our own, and we'll pass back to them again. They'll pass back to us, and Swords is now expired. So I do think it's probably best to Dark Hole here, but we instead play Swords. We don't have anything to really follow up offensively if we cleared the Summoned Skull, so I guess we're waiting it out a bit longer to get one of those monsters. And so we'll just stall for a little bit longer. They will set one, pass back. We draw a Neo, which means that we can actually do something here. We'll summon the Neo and then just pass back to them. I guess we were trying to bait out the Trap Hole and potentially hoping that they'll set a Maneater or something. But I don't necessarily like this play. I think we probably should just Dark Hold, summon the Neo. We don't really care if the Neo gets Trap Hold, and they've used up a Trap Hole already. But, I mean, I don't know. This is fine. They'll pass back to us. We draw a Giant Soldier, pass back to them. And, you know, we're just not being proactive here. And I think we really should be proactive. But we do not. We'll set one and pass back to them, and they will attack. We do have 2 reinforcements here, so we can get our Neo up over their Summoned Skull, but if they have any single reinforcements, then we lose the battle, and we've lost 3 cards, so we're just going to take the damage. We do have the Dark Hole or the Raigeki, and we draw a Maneater Bug, which is, you know, we can use that to clear the skull, hopefully. And we do. So now we get popped. They'll set one, pass back to us. And we check their graveyard, see what defenders they have in there. They have a soldier and a bug, so it could be either soldier or bug here. And we're just going to Dark Hole it just in case, and it was bug. So we're feeling okay about that. We're going to bring out Lodge-In, and that will eat a Trap Hole. I think we maybe should have brought out Giant Soldier, because if they used a Trap Hole and Giant Soldier, that would have been okay for us. And we have 2 Trap Holes to use, so, you know, they're going to bring out a Battle Ox, and we Trap Hole that. We've got an extra Trap Hole in hand, so it's not the worst to use it here. And we're going to bring out a Giant Soldier, and we're going to attack in with the Giant Soldier. Next, we will set a Trap Hole, pass back to them, and they'll bring out another Battle Ox, which we will again Trap Hole. They're going to Pot of Greed, which is pretty nice, and they're going to set one, pass back to us. We drew a 3rd Trap Hole, which is very fun. We're going to attack in with the Giant Soldier, and then we'll set that Trap Hole, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Lodge-In, which we will Trap Hole here, and we will attack in here for 1300, but they're going to actually Woboku that, which is a very interesting choice. We'll set the D-Spell as a bluff, because that's really not a risky bluff to make, because, you know, if they D-Spell our D-Spell, it's like, whatever, you know, it's D-Spell isn't the best spell card in the game. So we set the D-Spell, pass back to them. They're going to activate Swords, pass back to us, which we're feeling very good about, because it means they likely don't have another monster. And we have a D-Spell, so we can just clear that Swords. We'll attack in with the Giant Soldier, pass back to them. They will bring out a Lodge-In. They're going to attack into our Giant Soldier. We will activate reinforcements here to trade. They have reinforcements of their own, but we have the last reinforcement. So we will be able to trade our Giant Soldier and 2 reinforcements for one of their Lodge-Ins and one of their reinforcements. And we have a Neo in hand to back it up next turn. I think that this is, you know, a questionable choice, because we do have Raigeki. So what we could have done is next turn summon out Neo, Raigeki their board away, and try and get in for lethal damage with the 2 reinforcements. They've used up 2 Trap Holes, so they might not have a Trap Hole. And if they have a Woboku, at least we'll save our reinforcements for later. But we don't do that. And I don't think it's the worst that we don't do that. Fissure is not necessarily what we want to see. We definitely want to have a trap to back up the Neo. But we are going to bring out the Neo, and we are going to get in for 17. And they do have Woboku, so not the worst. We're going to set 2, pass back to them. We're trying to bluff that we have a trap among these and potentially make it less likely that they'll dispel. They have Change of Heart, which is unfortunate for us. Means that we're probably going to lose our Neo, and we do in fact lose the Neo. They'll bring out Summon Skull and set another and pass. We have Soul Exchange, which is very nice, and we will use the Soul Exchange while we can. Bring out Summon Skull, pass back to them. They will Fisher away our Summon Skull, set one, pass back to us, and we have Battle Ox. So we can bring out Battle Ox, and there's a bit of a debate about whether we Raigeki here or not. If it's a bug, then we lose the Battle Ox, and they've used up 2 bugs already, so they have a third in deck somewhere. More likely it could be a Giant Soldier, but then again, if it was a Giant Soldier, why wouldn't they attack us? So, you know, we likely have the read that it's bug, because they probably would have attacked with the Giant Soldier if they could have. So, you know, we could Raigeki this, and we do Raigeki it. And we are right that it was bug. So we're trying to get in for a lot of damage. They use up another Woboku, which we feel okay about. They're going to Dark Hole away our Battle Ox, summon out a Giant Soldier, and attack in for 13. Pass back to us. We drew another Summon Skull, which is a big rip. You know, Soul Control is a good deck, but it can draw into things like this, which are just not ideal. So we will Fisher away the Giant Soldier, and they will Reborn back a Summon Skull for exact lethal. And that is the game. So we lost the second game, and we were likely losing the second game, no matter what happened in the first game, I think. Although, you know, who can say? Because if we had gotten more aggressive in the beginning, maybe we would have been able to pull it out. But the big reason I wanted to show off this replay is to sort of show why thoughtful bluffing is important. Bluffing is, of course, a very, you know, common thing that happens in this format. There's not really good spell and trap removal in this format outside of like Dispel or Trap Master, which are not very good at all. So, you know, bluffing is a common practice, and it's generally a very good practice. But if you're in a situation where, you know, you need every card you have, and you're not at risk of dying, and if they do dispel a spell card in your hand, then you are in a very tough spot. You don't have to bluff. And as the first game shows, you know, it would have been much better if we didn't bluff there, and we could have potentially won that game, which we actually lost. So just something to keep in mind. Be careful when bluffing. You definitely should bluff. This video is not meant to say, oh, don't bluff. But when you're bluffing, be careful. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned something a bit about the format, and you've learned something that can help you when you play games in the format. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.